from the chilly ocean is splashing into your boat as you look ahead to see a beach which you and your team of soldiers must invade. Bombs explode in the water around you. Your boat tries to navigate through spikes and landmines that are guarding the water leading up to the beach. A boat nearby is sinking from an explosion. "Out of the boat! Out of the boat!" someone shouts. The ramp to the front of the boat goes down and you rush out with the other soldiers. You are very scared, but you know in order to win the war, this beach must be taken back. It is D-Day, and you are one of the Allied soldiers preparing to take Normandy Beach in France.
Ooh, doesn't that video just give you the chills? This is D-Day. Yes, we are talking about D-Day. But before we do, I just want to give you a little bit of a background of what D-Day is. D-Day, so after World War II began, Germany invaded and occupied northwestern France in the beginning of May 1940. The Americans, however, did not enter the war until December of 1941, and that happened just after a huge historical invasion of America called Pearl Harbor. Some of you guys have heard of it. And then in 1942, they, as in the Americans, and the British, who have evacuated from the beaches of Dunkirk in May of 1940, after being cut off by the Germans at the Battle of France, and were considering the possibility of a major Allied invasion across the English Channel. The following year after that, Allied plans for cross-channel invasion began to ramp up. In November of 1943, Adolf Hitler, who was aware of the threat of the invasions along France's north coast, put Erwin Rommel in charge of spearheading the defense operations in the region. The Germans did not know exactly where the invasions were going to happen or where the Allies were going to strike, so Hitler charged Rommel with finishing the Atlantic Wall, a 2,400-mile fortification of bunkers, landmines, and beaches and different water obstacles. In January of 1944, actually, General Dwight Eisenhower, he was appointed the commander and operations overlord. And in the months and weeks before D-Day, the Allies carried out a massive deception operation intended to make the Germans think that the main invasion target was Pas de Calais. It is the narrowest point between Britain and France, rather than going to Normandy. In addition, they led the Germans to believe that Norway and other locations were potential invasion targets. Many tactics were used to carry out the deception, including fake equipment, a phantom army commanded by George Patton, and supposedly based in England across from the Pas de Calais, double agents and fraudulent radio transmissions. So the entire time before D-Day, essentially, America was creating deceptions. England, who was working with us, was creating deceptions. The Allies themselves were all creating deceptions to lead up to us storming the beach on that wonderful day. And that day was June 6th, 1944. Just like the video we heard in the beginning of this. It was cold, and the conditions were not that great. But, well, you know what? I won't spoil it. I'll give you a little bit more background in this video right here. And this will explain a little bit more about what happened that day and the deception in the different locations of the different beaches. Whereas Omaha Beach is the beach where D-Day happened.
The landings. There were 5 landing areas. Utah and Omaha, which involved U.S. troops, and Gold, Juno, and Sword, which involved British and Canadian troops. 2 U.S. airborne divisions landed by parachute and glider inland from Utah, and 1 British airborne division on the east flank of Sword. They took most of their objectives and disrupted possible German counterattacks. On Omaha Beach, German resistance was the most fierce, with heavy Allied casualties. But by the end of the day, the beach was clear. Utah Beach was the easiest to clear, while the other 3 beaches were somewhere in between. It was important for the Allied troops to gain as much territory as possible, to make room for the follow-up forces. The inland advance later in the day, however, came up short of the D-Day objectives of Caen and Bayeux. There would be much harder fighting in the days to come.
Wow, D-Day was huge. Actually, in total of troops that landed on Normandy Beach was 156,115 troops. In fact, there was 73,000 American troops which landed on Omaha and Utah beaches, including airborne troops, which was 23,000 airborne troops. British, they landed in Gold and Sword beaches, including airborne troops, and they had 61,715. Canadian was 21,400 troops, and they landed on Juno Beach. Aircraft support was 1,590, and there was only 127 aircrafts lost. Naval vessels that had the Operation Neptune was 6,939. And there was 1,213 combat ships with 4,126 landing crafts. In fact, even though D-Day did happen on June 6th, by June 11th, a total of 326,547 troops landed, with a total of 54,186 vehicles landed on those beaches. The Allies, when preparing for D-Day, planned for 40,000 casualties. In all reality, there was only 10,000 casualties. All of this to say that D-Day was a massive success. It allowed us to go ahead and invade Germany and invade Europe. And that was the main goal of D-Day, was to be able to invade them and to be able to get onto their land because of those barriers of that huge Atlantic Ocean. But don't let it fool you. Overall, Normandy campaign was very brutal and very violent on both sides, and then also some civilians. In fact, nearly 15,000 French civilians were killed. Ultimately, D-Day became one of the biggest days, not only in American history, but in the history of the world. It not only allowed us to invade into Germany and to eventually stop World War II, but it helped us stop a crazy dictator in Adolf Hitler, eventually ending the crazy Nazis and the crazy concentration camps that were happening. Without D-Day, it might not have been possible to win this war. But we'll never know, because it did happen and we were very successful as the United States of America and as the Allied troops. So, as this day lives on, we celebrate it every year on June 6th. It is a day that helped us win World War II. It helped this country stay alive and keep away people such as Adolf Hitler. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you.